Blog Talk Radio.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom. I'll keep my guns. Try to keep my money and my religion too.
Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
I'm going to keep my big VA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need. We know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
And that was a little shameless commercial for the Free American Hour for me, and the music was provided by one of the first people I interviewed for one of my first magazines, Hank Williams Jr. My guest today, you are listening to the Free American Hour. I am Clay Douglas. My guest today is Elias from Montana, the great state of Montana, with the Oathkeepers. Hello, Elias.
Good morning, Clay. Good morning, dear. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing very well, Elias. And as I told you earlier, I had Mike Fry, who is also working with Oathkeepers up in Yavapai County in Arizona. And he's putting a meeting together of the committees of safety up in Phoenix. And I'm trying to get up there to attend that and be there. I think this is going back to the beginning, and I think it's kind of where we need to be, isn't it? That we need to go back to our Constitution, to the plan the Founding Fathers gave to us when they defeated or fought, at least to a standstill, the New World Order of that day. The sun never sets on the English Empire.
The sun didn't set either. I think the bloody Brits are still at it. They're not using militaries anymore the way they used to occupy nations. They're occupying and controlling nations through financial activities. And, that's the benefit of having colonies that back in the 1700s, 1800s, even into the 1900s, these countries like England that had colonies, the reason they did was because it benefited their purse. And you don't need the occupying army as long as you're collecting the money off the top of the gross national product of any country. You can let them fly their flag, talk their language, whatever you want to do, as long as you're controlling the purse strings and reaping the profits. And I'm thinking that's what England is still up to. And the sun never did set on their empire.
No, it didn't. And you're absolutely right about that. The city of London is its own little independent city, kind of like Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, and the Vatican. We got three cities that basically rule the world, and they want you to be peons. They've refined, the way I put it, Elias, is they have refined the art of slavery to the point that the slaves don't know they're slaves. I'm not a slave, man. I can go get my pickup, go get a beer, watch.
That's right. I'm free. I can choose what channel on TV I want to watch. I can go where I want to. I'm just free as I can be.
That's right.
As free as I need to be, and I'm happy in this freedom. So don't rock the boat. And you are exactly right. I consider it three vortexes through which all this evil desire to control people comes. And it is the Vatican, it's Washington, D.C., and it's City of London Financial District. And I salute you for knowing about that City of London mess. That's it's just one of the most fantastic clues that anybody can have. Looking at Washington, D.C., you see the same thing. You've got a small squared area that is the seat of a government and an operation that is actually superior to the government in our Constitution. We've had some FBI and DEA, ATF raids in Montana last year, and one of our citizens raised the question, who invited the feds into Montana to do these raids? And that question begs the other question, you mean the feds have an authority outside of that 10 square miles in Washington, D.C.? Well, actually, they have to be invited in by either a state legislature or a governor, or they can just buffalo their way in on people's ignorance. People don't know that the feds have to be invited to come into their state and enforce laws. See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And,
now, Sheriff Richard Mack, who is an Oath Keeper, is holding a conference up in Las Vegas this month.
Yes, sir.
Of county sheriffs.
Exactly.
And Sheriff Mack is the one that beat the Brady bill. Sheriff Mack has been a friend of mine since he was in office as a sheriff, as a publisher of the Free American. I used to go in his office and visit.
Awesome. That's good to know, Clay. You'll never find a better American anywhere, and he's certainly a constitutional-minded former sheriff. He was actually able to attend a class on the Constitution when he was a law officer. I think he was a police officer at that time before he became a sheriff, under Cleon Skousen. And so he got a good dose of American history and Americanism.
Cleon Skousen is one responsible, and I think I've got a link for him somewhere on my website. He posted the whole communist plan, in 34 points that they wanted to accomplish in the Congress.
Yes, sir.
And by the way, that's just this is the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association that Sheriff Mack has formed, and
right.
They're putting this conference on in Las Vegas during January 29th through the 31st, 2012. Sheriffs and peace officers from around the nation will convene to discuss timely issues of duty and responsibility enshrined in their positions, and the registration deadline is sometime soon here, but it's due by January 11th. January 11th. And this is, folks, this is only open to peace officers only, but you can help get them there, and that's what they're looking for help for now.
Right. They're still raising money, and the January 11th registration deadline is not an impenetrable wall. You can, sheriffs can, or a peace officer can register late if they want to. The deal is the first 200 have their expenses paid. More than 200 will have to pay their individual expenses. So we don't really know yet how many are going to be there, but he has confirmed quite a few sheriffs. The board. If
you would too, I haven't been able to get a hold of him. He's been traveling and moving around, but I would like to try to be able to attend that as a reporter. I'm not a police officer, but I work with Sheriff Larry Deaver over here to try to put the veterans together with the Rangers in Cochise County, and I can always give him a call and maybe get to go up there with him.
I'll be glad to shoot your request over to Sheriff Mack. As you said, he is traveling right now. I talked to him 2 days ago from some airport somewhere. But I would be glad to let him know that you'd like to come up. I don't know exactly the details on press coverage, but I'm sure he'd probably be happy to have coverage from any journalism that's available.
And I have from Friday, January 20th, open right now for Sheriff Mack. I'll be glad to put him on, and I'd also love to do an interview and have Stuart Rhodes on here.
Okay. Well, I'll tell both of those gentlemen that you have openings. That's all next week, right?
Yes, sir. Starting Friday. I've got Friday, January 20th open, and then Monday the 21st is open right now.
Alrighty. Well, I'll let them know, and I'll certainly be sure to make sure Sheriff Mack knows that you'd like to attend the conference. It wasn't such a long ride. I got down there myself to see that. It's going to be a great event. I believe the URL is CSPOA.org. I believe will get
it's linked up on my website. All you got to do is click on that particular underlined sentences, and it'll take you right there to the sheriff's site.
Awesome. Thanks for listening there, Clay.
Yeah, no problem. Elias, they have anytime I've told people, anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after three classes of people in order. They go after the farmers first because they don't want you being able to feed yourself. Plank number 9 is corporate farms. Can you say Monsanto?
You can say that.
And 2, they go after the intelligentsia. That means anybody that is smart enough to know what the hell they're trying to pull.
They can't afford too much dissent, so they will squash dissent too.
That's right. And 3rd, they go after the police and the law enforcement and the veterans who are still loyal to the old regime. That would be the Constitution, wouldn't it?
That would be the Constitution. Yeah.
And they have done that. The oath. The last time I was with the Oathkeepers was here when a sheriff SWAT team shot a veteran because he had a rifle in his hallway protecting his family.
Yeah, that was a really an explosive situation for Pima County Sheriff's Office. They didn't know they were going to be getting the national coverage that happened there. And it didn't look good, especially the way they lied in the early reports about what happened. They lied blatantly. I am one person who is going to hold their feet to the fire forevermore until justice is done there. Vanessa Guarena has filed a rather remarkable lawsuit, I'm sure you know. And you have a man that they could have picked up at work or in the parking lot outside of where he works, or any stop sign on the way to his house. They'd been tailing the guy. They knew what his habits were. He'd been under surveillance, and they waited until he got home that morning after a 12-hour shift at work, and then hit his door. I think it was around 9:30 in the morning. He'd been asleep about less than 2 hours. When they came in with a military-style assault, an urban warfare assault, and just on the pretext of serving a warrant. The guy had no prior criminal record. There were suspicions because his brother was quite apparently a worthy object of surveillance, but I believe he had loaned his brother his truck a couple of times or something, but they had really no reason to accost the man in his home that way. If you or I, Clay, had been awakened by our wife screaming that there was somebody outside with a gun, and we put our wife and kid in the closet and grabbed a rifle and headed through the kitchen and stepped out into the hallway with a rifle in our hand to see what's going on, just when the cops came through that door, you and I would have done what almost all veterans and any other form of police or law enforcement or any other average good American would have just done to defend our family. We would have grabbed the rifle and headed for the door to see what was happening.
Yeah, the only difference from my viewpoint, I wouldn't have had the safety on.
Well, I tell you, you know, he had good training. I think he had done 2 tours over in the war zone, and he had good training. And I'm a former Marine myself, and I realized that you do take precautions, that you don't want to shoot until you know what you're doing. And I don't hold that against him, but the fact that he stepped into the hallway out of the kitchen just as the door was being crashed in doesn't indicate that he was trying to shoot cops. It indicates a man who was trying to protect his home. Somebody in his family had a gang home intrusion just like that in the previous year. And it's not uncommon in Tucson out here to have home intrusions where people sometimes even will come through your door hollering police, and you don't know what's going on. So you know, I can't fault the man for trying to defend his home.
Well, you know, we have a little. I have a little problem here, right, with this whole police, this SWAT team. These SWAT teams, they're basically, and with the you know, they passed this Senate Bill 1959, House Bill 1955 a few years back on homegrown terrorism, how to prevent homegrown terrorism. And what they did is create that legislation created the fusion centers. Now that's the feds coming into the and basically controlling, manipulating, seeing what and providing the information for the local police. And the SWAT teams are nothing but militarization of the police. Isn't that what's happening here? But they were kind of held. They were held back. They had to do it that way because we had posse comitatus.
We had posse comitatus, and we also still had, for a long time in America, we still had moral, ethical values that were ingrained in our culture, and people just didn't do this kind of barbaric, unruly, intrusive behavior. This is all coming. It's a mechanized police state. It's coming out of a policy that I think originated at the City of London, and because the bankers in London chanced to own a sizable and unknown portion of the U.S. national debt, they lever that debt in order to establish policy in our government over here in America. And they get what they want because we owe them. And they're the invisible controllers. They set these kind of policies up so they can take our Constitution down. They have employed cultural Marxists in a march through our cultural institutions for the last 60 years. And they have also employed, the same group in the City of London gave us the CFR and everything subsequent to that. They created and maintained the NEA so they could regulate content in public school textbooks. They created the American Historical Society so they could alter perceptions of history. They've just done a full frontal assault on the American people and on our way of life. So what it's ending up to now is, and my articles over at Oathkeepers.org, my articles indicate this. I have a 5-piece series called An Empire Strikes Home. Anybody can get that by just Googling An Empire Strikes Home, Oathkeepers. Will bring it right up. But I'm accusing the federal government of establishing policy that ended up putting a SWAT team on Guerena's household in Tucson, Arizona. And I don't blame the individual cops initially. I blame the source of the problem, which is coming out of Washington, but that move in Washington is influenced by the British hidden government over there in the banking community.
Well, what has happened now, Elias, is they passed the NDAA, which has suspended posse comitatus, and that means that the troops that have been over in Iraq, that they're bringing back out of Iraq, have been trained to basically do the same things to Americans, and now the door's open that they could do that.
The door is open. There's a lot of people are running around trying to defend this move, saying that the bill clearly says that this will not affect U.S. citizens. That's a bunch of hogwash. There's a setting and a context in which this bill has to be viewed. There are precedents already set by previous Supreme Court decisions, such as Hamdi was one. But you've got people who are they're determined to make this country a third world nation and a battleground, a police state battleground. And the dissent, like you said, one of the sorts of people that any dictatorship has to get rid of is the people who are awake and alert and who dissent against new policies that would be tyrannical. So this is an ongoing movement. That NDAA is just one more step. They've got a couple of other bills waiting up there now that will give new teeth to the NDAA, and we're just watching to see, how far it's going to go before the American people themselves refuse to support this government. The government is totally berserk. It's totally out of control, and it is totally infested with evil now. They want a one-world government. Our Constitution is the last serious barrier to a one-world government. So
I call it one world government of the banksters, by the banksters, and for the banksters, and they don't give a damn about the American people, the Russian people, the Iranian people, the Iraqi people, anyone, anywhere.
No, in fact, they'd like to get rid of a lot of us. They'd have a tidier little plantation here on planet Earth if they had a few billion of us out of the way. So, you mentioned the returning war veterans or the active duty troops that are going to be assigned here in the United States.
Yes, sir.
We do have Northcom sitting there in Colorado. Fort Stewart, Georgia is training tens of thousands of troops for assignment to Northcom or any similar duty here in the United States. We, as Oathkeepers, are outreaching to our military, especially our active duty, and trying to explain to them, you're coming right up on a line in the sand where you're going to have to make a decision to either be on the side of the American people or obey unlawful orders coming from an illegitimate government. And that's really where we're at. And I don't know the percentages of troops that understand this, but we are hammering this out there to our military overseas as well as here domestically to honor that oath and remember that the oath was sworn to the Constitution and not sworn to the government. So if you wish us luck, man, if we're successful with the Oathkeepers mission, there'll be enough troops, military, and law enforcement to refuse those kind of orders, that will not turn their guns on the American people, and that will understand what is actually happening here. But it's very serious. Our country is in dire peril. They are tinkering not only with this military police state encroachment, but they're also tinkering with our economic foundations. They're messing with the U.S. dollar, our currency system. They're messing with everything. So it's a full-on, all-out war to assault the American people, our way of life, our Constitution, our morals and values, and end up putting us in slavery, and either eliminating or re-educating any dissidents, or you're either going to be a dissident who is educatable, or you're going to be a dissident who disappears, or you're going to be a slave who is happy in his bondage. And those are the choices left to these people. So we have to remember the Constitution is the liberty that we are losing. We have to re-embrace this Constitution. As you said, we got to go back to the beginning. We need to go back to all the way back to 1772, when old John Brown went in a saloon there in Providence, Rhode Island, rounded up about 50 yahoos, and they floated down the river where a British tax ship had been stranded on a sandbar, and burnt that baby to the waterline. The committees of correspondence was born or reborn out of that event, when the King of England announced if he could catch whoever burnt that ship, he was going to remove them to England for trial and tribunal. The Patriots down in Virginia got wind of that and decided we were establishing these committees of correspondence. And that's the organizational structure that led to a unified resistance among the colonies, and ultimately led to the Revolutionary War. So back in those days, the government of the day was oppressively taxing people to finance its war games in other places, and restricting freedoms that British subjects in England had enjoyed. And so our colonists, our forefathers, grew weary of that, and they suffered a long train of abuses before they actually drew iron and fired shots. But eventually it came to that, and what we're hoping at Oathkeepers is that we can avert this takeover of our country without anybody having to fire a shot. We don't know. We have a Homeland Security apparatus that regulates or monitors and moderates the Fusion Center network, and that Fusion Center network does interface the military with your local law enforcement. You have federal Homeland Security interface with the Pentagon, and fusion centers of their dispersions of the marching orders of the day, so to say, across the nation. These are dealing with state level, county level, and local level peace officer communities and law offices, and they've created a network. And this was predicted back in it was July 26th of 1999. Then Secretary of Defense William Cohen gave a speech, which is in the Washington Post, and it's also archived on his website today, predicting he didn't call it fusion centers, but he spoke of a network of offices around the United States that would interface and interrelate the local law enforcement with the military. And they did this through DARPA, D-A-R-P-A. They did it through DARPA, and the State Department bought into it, and Justice Department became merged at that time with the Pentagon. And they have joint offices now where divisions in Justice Department and sections of the Pentagon are working together to fulfill Homeland Security's need for unity in the marching orders for the cops as well as soldiers. So DARPA creates the military equipment, the military field tested in war zones perpetually around the world, and once it's field tested, it becomes government surplus, and the government surplus is then fed down to the local sheriff's department, like Sheriff Dupnick there at Pima County, Arizona, to where he's training soldiers, making soldiers out of his deputies.
Yes.
And that's our problem. It's not the cops in your neighborhood. It's not the